For a song that has almost 2 billion streams and is arguably one of the greatest rock songs ever recorded, it breaks a lot of rules, sets some new ones, and I think there's a lot of important lessons in both of those. Let's dive in. What's up, guys? Welcome back to Low End University. Today is my 100th episode since restarting this YouTube channel just about a year ago, and I wanted to go back to a song I really knew well. For the last 3 months, I've been doing a lot of punk rock songs I've never heard before, and that's been a blast, but sometimes it's great to go back to a song you just know. Guns N' Roses are such a special band for me. In fact, I covered Sweet Child of Mine with some of my best friends in high school at our beauty pageant. And then about 12 years later, when I was playing music professionally, my band Watermox was on the bill with them for Exit 111 right before COVID hit. And what a trip. But before we get going, of course, Sweet Child of Mine is from their debut album released in 1987, Appetite for Destruction. Needs no introduction. But let's get into it and talk about what makes these bass parts great, the songwriting great, and everything else. So here we go. Sweet Child of Mine from Guns N' Roses. Might be one of the most iconic and recognizable intros ever. Little bass lead coming in. We'll talk about that in a second. Okay, right off the bat, you of course know, it's well documented, I think I even remember reading that when I read Slash's biography or autobiography, that this intro wasn't taken seriously by him, it was a throwaway riff, and the lesson there is that the things you least expect to be successful tend to be the ones that are. But the coolest thing about Duff's playing here is that whether this was intentional or not, or regardless of what order the vocals and the bass little lead here in the intro came in, I think it's extremely genius that that bass solo almost mirrors the vocal melody and gets it in your head before Axl even starts singing. And it just kind of gets it in your head before you hear it. And it's like the vocal melody becomes familiar. Some of those da-da-da-da-da-da, that's kind of a repeating motif in the riff. And the coolest thing about this bass solo is that anytime I hear Sweet Child of Mine come on at a sporting event or something, people are air guitaring and singing that bass solo. When does anybody sing a bass solo or freaking remember it? It goes to show you that having lyrical, memorable, and singable parts, even on an instrument like bass, is key and essential to really making a song click. And one of the rules they really break is sort of with the chord progression. Some say it's modal, some say it's in the key of G, or is it in the key of D? Of course, it's tuned down in D flat. I'm going to refer to it as D and G in this video, just so I don't have to say flat 1,000 times. But we'll talk about that in a second. Let's keep going into the verse. Killer. The cool thing about Duff's bass parts in this song I really wanted to highlight in this video is the fact that they really never repeat. There's really no pattern in the bass part at all. And I've learned a lot of rock songs in my day, and typically the bass patterns, the fills, they're really stuck to the chord progression and kind of boxed in by that. The possibilities they could do are kind of dictated by the guitar player or the chord progression at hand. And Duff plays his bass fills very randomly in this song. And it's almost more drum-like because drum fills throughout a song can really be random as long as they're keeping the momentum and the feel going. In any song, rock song, drummer might go digga 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 don't. And then the next verse he might go blankum blankum bum. And then the next one it might be different. And that doesn't really affect anything about the quality of the song as long as the fills are appropriate for the dynamics. But bass fills can kind of venture out and be different, but ideally must kind of follow something in the song to sound relevant. Otherwise, they kind of sound out of place. But I think the coolest thing here is that Duff's fills, almost everyone is different. And in fact, when I was learning this song for that high school beauty pageant thing I talked about in the intro, I wanted to learn Duff's parts note for note. I was really big on that growing up. I guess it was the challenge. And this song was so tough to memorize because there really wasn't any fill that repeated more than once. And later in life, as I've become a professional musician, I've learned kind of the genius of how his bass lines weave in and out through this record. I think he has the randomness of Steven Adler's drum parts while keeping the melodic content of Slash and Izzy's playing, and I think he struck a perfect balance of gluing the song together, which is why I refer to Duff as the absolute heartbeat of the band. His bass tone, the way it fits in with Adler's kick drum, sounds like a heartbeat as well. Let's get into this chorus. Love this fill. Great. So the theory thing again is that the fact that this song goes from D major to C major to G. And this is the old Sweet Home Alabama argument. Is the song in G or is it in D? This is well documented on a lot of YouTube videos. I'm not going to get into it too much. But the one thing I do want to point out is the lesson sort of this video as well. The fact that in the intro, Slash is playing G and F sharp on that iconic intro. The repeating notes are... So F sharp is, of course, in the key of D. But Duff comes in with that bass fill we just talked about and goes... F natural. And in the same bar, there's an F natural and an F sharp. Remember, I'm not accounting for the down tuning. I'm just talking about it as if the song is in D. So in the same bar, we have Slash playing G to F sharp and Duff playing F natural. Those notes don't clash, and it kind of propels the argument for what key is the song is in. Or did they even communicate this and it just sounded good? I think that's the lesson here, is that if it sounds good, it works. It obviously has. Theory or something people get caught up on a lot. I know I talk about it a lot in these videos, but I think theory should always be remembered to be descriptive and not necessarily prescriptive. I love going back and understanding the theory just to speak the language, but it isn't necessary to write a hit song. In fact, you can play wrong notes in the same bar, technically the way this song is, and you could have 2 billion streams. That's another lesson I wanted to talk about. Let's keep it going. This is where the bass fills get a little random. They start kind of blossoming. I can't remember them either. Catching those drum hits. On the money. Right there, he played an F natural. I believe the song is in G major, and they're just playing it more kind of D mixolydian. But it's tough to say because the vocal melody really never hits that F natural as well. But in that bass fill you just heard right there, he does a walk down starting from the 5th in C major. So C major, he goes. And, you know, is it a passing tone in function? Is he using that note as a passing tone and decided to stick with it? There's a mystery, right? I love going back and trying to understand why musicians did the things they did, to really admire the art for what it is. But that's something that always stumped me. I remember even reading those tabs back then and thinking, are the tabs wrong? Surely he played an F sharp there. Nope, you can hear it clear as day. It's an F natural. Who knows? That's the more drummer-like fills. Doing it up high. Now he goes the one down low. There really hasn't been any repeats. I love that about this song. Every fill kind of has a different place, and it almost sounds like they were so premeditated with the way they line up with Adler's drumming, but they're kind of everywhere melodically. Really cool. And that tone is just thick, right? Yeah, I don't remember them. They're so random. It's been a good while since I really soaked this one in. What a classic. That one has a lot more energy. I can't remember the exact fingering of the notes, but that fill hasn't happened yet in the song either. Love it. Love the tone. This is kind of my Duff tone here. And if you want to get my Helix preset for Line 6 Helix, you could head over to my Patreon. I just posted it today. If you want to jam with some Duff tone, get in on it. Let's keep going. Nice double chorus. Now this bass fill, cool. Going up chromatically there. A lot of wrong notes if we're being technical when we talk about chromaticism. Just something to fill that time, but he goes straight up chromatically, and it kind of lends itself to the argument that F naturally has been kind of sticking with the whole song. Might have just been a passing tone that sounded good, and he ran with it. But that's another fill that hasn't happened once. Just appropriate for the time and place of the song where it is. Really cool. And this is the final thing I'll say about the theory thing. I don't want to harp on it too much, but the fact that this goes down to E minor, which is the relative minor of G major, leads me to believe the song is actually in G major, and Duff is just playing an out-of-key note for whatever reason. We're jumping back to the beginning of the song just for a second because I want to further my point with how Duff playing an incorrect note technically doesn't matter, because this is even a bigger mistake. And if you've never heard this before, after you hear this, you'll never unhear it. Steven Adler starts on the hi-hat, and mid-phrase, it's like he forgets he was supposed to be on the ride cymbal, and they left it in the recording. Didn't affect the song's legacy, did it? Check it out. Listen. They left that in the recording. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it's something I always look forward to hearing that. When I hear that guitar intro come on, I'm like, I'm going to air drum it the way he played it. Starting on the hi-hat, going to the ride. Incredible. Okay, back to the middle of the solo. Here we go. Switching up the chord progression just a bit. This section's well documented. They landed here, didn't know what to say lyrically or where to go. It became a figurative into a literal thing. Not going to talk about that, but just another thing. Happy accident. I feel like this whole album, but especially this song, had a few happy accidents. Once again, the lesson is that who cares? If it's a great song, it's a great song, despite the theory, despite the messed up drum take. I love lessons like that that kind of subvert what you're told musically. Everything has to be correct and within the right key and chord progression. And I love using songs like this to prove that it doesn't, and nobody cares. Good song is a good song. This whole outro is just phenomenal, legendary. Duff really choking the notes off. Playing like a drummer now. Gotta keep playing. Hearing a classic song like Sweet Child of Mine never gets old. What a great song. It's nostalgic. And as I grow older, I hear new things in this song, even this album, all the time. Appetite for Destruction is a masterpiece in my mind. The branding, the way they characterize themselves as individual brands, their names, the imagery, the songs, they almost had a punk aspect to them as well, which is kind of quoted by a lot of the band members. But I think the lesson here is that I just pointed out so many incorrect things about the song that clearly didn't hinder the song having a legacy. Sometimes it's important with art to just let it flow from the heart, from the gut, and not to overthink it. And I know I'm saying this in the video where I just overthought the song and analyzed it, but that's past tense. On the front end, you want to let it flow. And my big takeaway is to not let things like music theory bog you down. Remember, music theory should always be descriptive to learn the language, but not be prescriptive. Not tell you what you can't do, but rather to go back later and learn what you did, why something sounds cool, maybe so you can repeat it again or use something in identifying and developing your own sound. And as a bass player, I just love studying what Duff did. This song has the entire bag of tricks in classic rock in one song. Yeah, the bass lines are easy, but they're effective, they work, the tone works, his classic thumpy heartbeat tone with some grit. If you need to recreate this sound yourself, Galen Kruger, PJ bass, which is what I'm using here, a little bit of drive and a touch of chorus, and play the hell out of the strings. But his note choices, his rhythmic choices glue this song together and are the heartbeat of it. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. This was really fun to do a song I already know, prepare a few points and talk about it, and just put it under the microscope again. Please make sure you like and subscribe if you like the video. And once again, come find me on Patreon where I have tons of lesson content, licks, tracks, Helix patches, and many other reactions you cannot find here. I love you all. Thanks for hanging out with me. Cheers. We'll see you next time.